growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns. Oh, giddy up. It's night shift, baby. Welcome to another edition of the Failure to Stop podcast channel. This is the night shift. This is Tuesday's night shift with the always beautiful Andrea up late.
Hey, guys.
Tonight's the third and final episode in the Murdoch murder sagas. I'm really excited about jumping into this. Tonight's show's brought to you by Ghostbed. Sleep so good it's scary. If you haven't been following this case, lots of new updates. Monday's Off the Cuff was intense. I think the one story from that blew me away was the reporter who has a problem with dressing like how would you say it? Like scantily? Is that a word?
Yep. Scantily.
To an execution. Like, I feel like if you're going to an execution, maybe you just keep it modest. Maybe that's not where we fight for women's rights to dress however we want. Like it's Halloween every day. But you're a woman. I don't know. What do I know?
I don't really fight for women's rights, generally.
Oh, okay.
Speaking.
You're an inspiration to all of us. But I thought that was a very interesting story that somebody got removed from an execution.
That is odd. I just feel like there's bigger fish to fry, right?
But you know what? If you're going to an execution, what makes you think that you should wear the tiniest skirt you can and open-toed shoes? Like, I don't know. Maybe some common sense. It's not like I would walk into church with board shorts and a tanky top on.
Or like, what if the current arcs? Like I want to wear some like rubber soled shoes, maybe.
Yeah, that. And then like for me, it's like what if he was a dirtbag? Like what if he was like a raper murderer?
That's how I like to picture
I'm
all
guessing
the people that are
being executed,
perishing from capital punishment.
Yeah, me too. But I don't know. I would think like I would dress like a Muslim, like I was in Saudi Arabia, so he could see no flesh before he was executed. That's just me though.
Okay.
Not my world, but it was a great episode of Failure to Stop.
Maybe they should post a dress code.
Drew Breezy, I'm sure they do though. You know what I mean? Like when you walk into the courtroom, you have to have a collared shirt on. Well, you don't. Some judges don't care. Now there was a Judge Gregory in Raleigh. And he would always say, if you came in, it didn't matter who you were, he would say, tuck in your shirt when you enter my courtroom. And then if you said anything, he would say, I'm a fair and honest judge, and all I ask is that you tuck in your shirt and so show some decorum.
I mean, so then do they treat it like you're at like a restaurant that has a dress code, right? Like, do they treat it to where like so let's say the ladies walk in and they don't like what they have on, can they just give them like a big something to cover up with? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in this case, somebody had some waiters out in the car and offered them to her. And I think she wore them, some like fishing waiters. But anyway, she's making a big deal about it. And it made the news. It was really funny. But tonight we got the Murdoch murders. Thursday we have Last Call. Last Thursday we had the man who solo trekked Antarctica, Colin O'Brady. It was a phenomenal episode. So if you haven't gone back and listened to that, go for it. Friday's breakdown was Uvalde. Hindsight is 2022 with Drew Breezy. That was really exciting. We're gonna have Drew Breezy back. Last little bit of housekeeping before we jump into this last episode of the Murdaugh saga. We are planning a meetup in Wilmington. So if you are in Wilmington, or if you want to come to Wilmington in the next month or so, go ahead and hit us up in the DMs. We're going to be putting a date out pretty soon. Jay is also designing some new Failure to Stop swag, some night shift swag.
Guys, so the one I put on. Yeah, sorry. I was going to say the one I put on my story today was like a little touch of it. There's a couple other designs and I'm really super excited about those. I think you guys are gonna like them a lot.
It's nice to have a woman's touch in the swag shop. I feel like it's been ran by men for far too long, and it's time the women take a stand. It's time for the women to do their part and design fashionable clothes that people want to purchase. And then so we have that. And was there any? Oh, one more thing. Quick shout out,
Sean. I'm sorry, Sean. It's in North Carolina.
Oh, Sean Husk.
Yeah, he was just asking where Wilmington was. It's southeastern North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean Huskameyer Wiener, we hope to see you there. It's about, I don't know, 5 hours from Charlotte, which is where Huskameyer Wiener is from. Jose Garibay is on night shift tonight. He's working like 32 days straight or some bullshit like that. Send me a nice long message today. And really feel bad for the dude working 32 days straight. But at the same time, I'm happy that there are guys that are super excited to be out there for 32 days straight, still holding that thick blue line, that thick, veiny, nasty blue line. What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
You're not into that? Not into the thick, veiny, nasty blue lines? Just like the thin ones? Just into the short.
Ghostbed code Wolfpack, baby, for 30% off your next purchase.
That's right. Ghostbed is with us again. They're back, baby, with the promo code Wolfpack. And I believe this week and this week only, it's 35% off. But we will have a video ad that we're making on Friday with Mike the Cop and myself for the flagship Friday show. So if you want to see the new cool Ghostbed ad read, stay tuned to that. I mean, I don't know if you would or you wouldn't, but right now, Ghostbed, the promo code Wolfpack. All right, I've gone on way too long. We've got a real murder, a real Southern fried homicide to get to.
We do. I'm super pumped. So 2 bits on my part. Number 1, Alex, I've not forgotten about you. Your notes are laminated. I just haven't got them in the mail yet, but they will. I know you're just waiting anxiously for that.
I think since you're late on sending them your laminated notes,
that's
you
all
should
I'm
throw in a pair of panties.
That's all I'm saying. We had this talk multiple times. And Lastro, you can be angry if you want. I saw your chats. It's fine. I just said that there's no way that you had gingers in your family. So if you didn't like that, I'm very sorry. I still think you're very handsome.
Are there Mexican gingers? Is that a thing? Are there
I'm sure that there are, but he saw the picture of Alex Murdaugh and said that was his Uncle Bill. And I said, there's no way.
Oh, this guy right here?
No, that's my buddy Curtis.
That looks more like Lázaro Lopez. If Lázaro
that could have been his Uncle Bill,
an Anglo-Saxon Viking.
That's a bit unlike because I'm insensitive. All right. Excuse me. Okay, guys. So let's back up just a little bit to kind of go back where we started, that part 1 and part 2. If you remember, part 1 was the boat crash where the son, Paul Murdaugh was driving this boat. If you remember, it was he and his girlfriend and 2 other couples. Mallory Beach was the girl that was thrown from the boat and ultimately died from her injuries there. That was in February of 2019. But we then backed it up, and on part 2, we kind of took a little time machine back to 2015, where Stephen Smith, if you guys remember, was the boy the 19-year-old who was under pretty suspicious circumstances, found in the middle of the road. It was immediately deemed a hit and run. But we've learned since, and that's what we were talking about last week, that they are actually reopening. Investigators, SLED, if you remember, that's the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. SLED has reopened Stephen Smith's case in light of their findings with the rest of the Murdaughs in 2021. So that was 15 was the car wreck. Then we had in 2018, this is the first thing we're going to talk about today, is Gloria Satterfield, who was the housekeeper for the Murdaughs for over 2 decades. In 2018, she died after a alleged fall walking up the stairs of their home outside. Then we had the boat in 19, and then ultimately in June of last year, June of 2021, Paul, the son that was driving the boat, and Maggie, the mother, were found dead outside of one of their properties. And then there's something else that happened about 3 months later. So all these things are connected. I'm going to try to talk as briefly as possible about the housekeeper and another kind of obscure thing that are on the sides of this, and really dig in more to the Paul and Maggie deaths. That's what I want most of the show to be about. But
I believe the consensus after the last episode about the hit and run, as far as like all the law enforcement officers and everybody that listens to this show, the heavy consensus is, based on the information you have given us, is that that was not a hit and run, that there was some more nefarious activity. There just wasn't enough clues that added up. There wasn't enough evidence that pointed to hit and run.
There were zero vehicular findings on the road, right? So we talked. That was, I think,
and the fact that his shoes were still on.
His shoes were still on, and there were no bits and pieces of plastic or mirror or anything else on the road or anywhere around there. So, and there were so many other things. You guys, if you missed that episode, it is pretty interesting to go back and listen to. But that seemed fishy, and clearly it was fishy enough that they've decided now to. They just said that, if you remember, they said that they found enough information in investigating Paul and Maggie's murders and diving deeper into Alex Murdaugh's life, enough information that caused them to want to open that case back up from 2015. So we're going to move on, and now it is, February of 2018. So when you get a sec, I think we have a picture of Gloria. I've been kind of previewing her a little bit. Yeah, so there's Gloria Satterfield. She was 57 at the time of her death. It's a pretty sad story, actually. So we don't know of any underlying illnesses or past incidences that Gloria had. So I can't give you like a baseline health of her. But what happened was, on the morning of February 2nd, 2018, there's some discrepancy, as there is surrounding all of these cases all the time. Nothing is super clear cut here. She was either coming to work for them that day, or she was coming to pick up her check. Either way, keep in mind that she was kind of a quasi, I think she probably became a family friend. She was there for over about 20 years working for them. To the capacity of cleaning house, I think sometimes babysitting, nannying for them as those boys grew. Craig, thank you.
Craigers dropping $49.99 in the super chats. For those of you just listening, this is a live show on YouTube, and so we always do give a shout out to those who pay to to support us, to keep this show going. And Craig's a longtime sponsor of Night Shift, so thank you, Craig.
Right.
Craigers Tuleski.
So yes, thank you, Craig, so much. So Gloria came that morning. It's around 9:00 in the morning, and they have 8 concrete stairs outside of their home leading up to the front door or back door. I'm not actually super sure about that. But she fell, and evidently her fall woke Maggie, the mother, sometime right around 9. Maggie comes out to see Gloria laying there, and she goes to wake Paul, boat driver Paul. Okay, that's the best way. So if you remember, guys, there's 2 sons, Paul and Buster. And Buster may have potential implications in the Stephen Smith hit and run. That's kind of what we came around to with him as well. But Paul is in the home at this point. As far as we know, it's just mom Maggie and son Paul in the home when Gloria walks up the stairs ultimately and falls. So mom goes and wakes up Paul right around 9:00, or just after, and they call 911 at 9:24 that morning.
So is Paul the one that calls 911?
Maggie initially calls. So if you want to start getting that ready, we'll put that on in a minute. Huh?
I got it.
Whenever you're ready.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, in 1 second. So Alex, keep in mind, so Alex, the dad, right? He's still around. Alex has since said that he was at work approximately 20 minutes away when Gloria got there and fell. So if you guys are just listening, we just got a picture up right now of Maggie and Alex and their youngest son, Paul. So Alex says that he was at work 20 minutes away. He also is there when EMS gets there. So EMS got there at 9:41. They said that Maggie called him at 9:45. And he said he was 20 minutes away, but he still got there prior to EMS.
Now, I don't believe anything this family. At this point, I don't believe anything that this family says. Like, I know that, like, you want to say that that's a conspiracy can't be this deep, and it's just something that really can't happen. It's not really plausible or probable. But in this case, from the other 2 episodes, dude, nothing's off the table.
No, it's really not. And that's why I think that when we first started talking about this, and it was like, oh, I don't think I'm not going to innately just think that the cops are bad. And I still don't. I do think that they had some reverence to the Murdaugh name. And I think that they felt, I've said this before, a bit like they had their hands tied. For
Right.
sure. I mean, this is a tiny town, and now that we know how far-reaching their actions have been for the last 100 years, it's just too much. So, Alex whatever, EMS gets there and Alex is there, so you can make a judgment on whether or not Alex was at work prior to this or if he was there when Gloria fell. We have a lot of discrepancies here. Paul tried to sit her up. He says that Gloria told him to let her loose and she fell back down. But then we also hear from Paul that Gloria was incoherent and could barely mutter any words. We also hear that Alex arrives and that Gloria was sitting on the stairs, that he helped Paul sit Gloria on the stairs. But then when you guys are about to hear the 911 call and what they have to say, that's very, very different from that kind of picture. And you know what? Play the 911 call, and we're gonna go from there.
4 a.m. 38 seconds, February 2, 2018. Come here. 911, where's your emergency? 4147 Moselle Road. Okay, can you give me the address one more time? Make sure I got it right. Yes, 4147 Moselle Road. Okay, what's going on out there? I'm sorry? What's going on out there? My housekeeper has fallen and her head is bleeding. I cannot get her up. Okay, you said she's fallen. She's bleeding from the head? Yes. Okay. How old is she? I'm not sure, like 58 maybe. Do you know if she fell from standing or not? No. Where'd she fall from? She fell going up the steps, up the brick steps. Okay, so she outside or inside? Outside. Okay. How many steps is there? 8. Okay, is she on the ground or is she up near the top? She's on the ground. She's on the ground. Is she conscious? No, not really. Is she awake at all? Yeah. Okay. Is she just not like responding appropriately, but she is awake? Man, she's not responding. Okay, I've already got them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down, ma'am.
They get a little snippy here.
This is one of the things that the medic needs to know. If she's responding at all to you. No. Okay, so she's not responsive at all. Well, I mean, she's mumbling. Okay, so she is somewhat conscious. Is she breathing okay? Yes. Is she bleeding from anywhere? Yes, her head. Okay, are you guys able to control the bleeding? No. Can you put a clean rag or anything on it? Yeah, I got it. Okay, is she bleeding from like her face, the back of the head? I got an ambulance coming. My name what? Where exactly is she bleeding from on her head? I'm not sure, at the top of her head. Okay. What's it okay? Oh, gosh. What happened? She just fell back down. Can I get off this phone so I can go down there? Can I have your name and phone number? Or are you able to bring the phone down by her? What? Or are you on a cell phone where you can walk down there and talk? Cell phone. No. Okay, can you bring it with you so we can ask her some questions about what kind of pain she's having? Hello? Yeah, can you ask the patient what kind of pain she's having? Ma'am, she can't talk. Okay, do you know... She's cracked her head and there's blood on the concrete and she's bleeding out of her left ear. Okay, she's bleeding out of her ear? And out of her head. She's cracked her skull. Okay. All right, the other lady said that she had tried to stand up and fell down again? No, I was holding her up. Okay. She told me to turn her loose and she was trying to use her arm, but then she fell back over. Okay, do you guys know who she is? Yeah, she works for us. Okay, do you know if she's ever had a stroke or anything before? Ma'am, can you stop asking her? I already have them on the way. I I have a question on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down in any way. These are relevant questions that I have to ask for the ambulance. One of my questions is, has she ever had a stroke? I don't believe she's ever had a stroke now that I know. Okay. Okay, is she able to talk to you guys at all, or is she unconscious now? She's not unconscious, she's just mumbling. Okay. I believe she's maybe hit her head and maybe has a concussion or something. Okay. Maybe. Do you know what her name is? Gloria Satterfield. You said Sanderfield? Ma'am? You said Sanderfield?
You can, whenever you want, Eric. You can put it on.
What's the house?
Dang, that was like there was no empathy in anybody's voices for one thing, which is kind of strange to me.
I felt like Maggie had the tiniest bit of concern initially, like a little bit of like I don't know, can I just get off the phone to go down there and check her? But then it was just like they were so annoyed with that 911 operator who had to say more than once, like, I have to ask these questions, but they're already on their way. Like, that's not delaying them to come to you.
And she said that like 3 times. Like, hey, you know, but I don't understand, you know, if you've got that many people there, obviously life-saving actions are being taken. Why can't you stay on the phone? Why can't you walk down there with the phone? You know, what is so annoying about a 911 call or a 911 operator asking you questions? Because here's the thing is she is actively typing to the ambulance so that they have, you're a nurse. You know that that's the kind of information everybody needs to get the ball rolling. Right. Even an emergency room is probably getting into like, hey guys, if you guys are out in the hallway, if you guys are out fucking at the vending machines, probably got a code, whatever, for head injuries coming in. Let's go ahead and get ready, you know?
Yeah, when they say she's cracked her head open and it's bleeding, and then one of her next questions was, you know, do you know if she has a history of ever having a stroke? That's very important to know. They don't have to know the answer to it, but it makes sense that she's asking that, right? So I just thought that was a little bit telling, and you can hear Paul in that. It could be Alex. I think that is Paul speaking though. And you can hear him saying that she's speaking gibberish. She is not really fully conscious and all these things. What the call is kind of long, and there was I'm not going to bore you guys with the rest of it. You can listen to it for sure at home, but it goes on to say where the operator says, what kind of home do you have? And he's like, it's a big house.
I don't want to brag, but I have a really big fucking house.
And then when she asks if there are any gates or anything that they need to get into, he says, no, there are a couple of brick pylons. And that's what I want to be like the pylon that you smashed that boat into. And then he said that they would be waiting in a Ranger. He was like, you guys know what a Ranger is? And then his demeanor shifts immediately to like, I don't know, like old buddy, old pal. He was like, it'll be a green and black Ranger. And he's like, well, I guess they know what a Ranger is, right? And she's like, yeah, they'll know what that is. And he's like, okay, yeah. And it's a bizarre call. Very,
very, very bizarro there. I just think, you know, I guess in a family like that, you're so used to being in trouble, you know,
or
like
skirting it.
Yeah. And even as a cop, like we always say that like people can't stop lying. And that's what makes an investigation hard, is because people that live a life of crime are so used to lying that even when they don't need to lie, they still just lie. And it's like, and it confuses the detectives, the investigators. It confuses the whole operation because they can't tell simple truths that really have nothing to do with whether they're guilty or innocent. But,
right. I've known somebody like that before. It's fun. So another discrepancy, guys. So this will be fun for you. They tell 911 that she's too incoherent to speak, right?
Right.
But also Alex tells first responders and later the police that when he gets there, Gloria told him that his dogs tripped her.
Oh. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, how did all she's doing is mumbling. Here's another thing, though. You got her to her feet, and then she said, I'm good. Like anybody that's ever fallen. When I was
that woman didn't say she was good. I can promise you that.
When I was working when I was opening up a bank account about I don't know, 9-10 months ago. The bank teller had walked out to my truck. Oh, it was because I was getting a loan for my truck, my new truck. It's not new, it's used. It's for the distillery. I'm not humbly bragging here. It's very work style truck, nothing fancy. But she came out to write down some information inside the truck. Well, she missed the curb, hit the ground. She's fine. But like I helped her up. She was like, I'm good. I think I'm okay. I'm like, let's go ahead and get you inside. Let's sit down and then we'll see if you're good. And she's like, okay. And I like literally held on to her and like,
Yeah. And that's the natural thing to do.
House. So then the unnatural thing to do be like, you good, girl? And then like let her go.
Her head is bleeding profusely.
Right. So I the tone of voice, very unempathetic. At that time, you shouldn't really be fighting with dispatchers. You should be more of in a panic state or in a more of a, what can I do to make this better?
Well, and keep in mind that Alex was supposed to have been at work, but he's there when EMS gets there. So we're already into fishy zone now. And I'm sorry. I mean, definitely innocent until proven guilty. But I'll tell you what, after everything that we've learned about these people, it doesn't take a lot for the shady radar is up. So he either was or wasn't at work, was or wasn't there when Gloria fell. She's incoherent. They specifically say it to the 911 operator, yet she somehow in that moment is able to look at Alex and tell him that his dogs tripped her. So let me tell you her injuries real quick, and we'll start kind of going full circle on Gloria and moving on. Her injuries are she had a right head laceration. That's a cut. A right subdural hematoma. She had a traumatic brain injury from that. Multiple left posterior rib fractures. So posterior is toward the back. So keep in mind, guys, like kind of picture it, the anatomy on your head, or on your body. So she's got the right head laceration, right subdural hematoma. So that's like a bleed on the brain. Those are both on the same side, probably the same wound. But then the back left of her ribs are broken. Multiple ones. She had a partially
that's probably from falling on the stairs.
That could happen for sure.
Yeah.
She had partially collapsed lung and pulmonary contusion. Both of those are likely from her rib fractures.
Yeah.
So she got pretty banged up on those as she's walking up those 8 steps and fell. She's 57 too. We're not looking at like brittle bones, like low bone density of an elderly person.
I mean,
right?
You're close. You're knocking on 57.
I'm getting there. My bones are just fine though. But so, that would make a little bit more if she were 84 and we've got these broken ribs and different things. So that might make a little bit more sense, but she's not. She's 57 years old. So just those are some pretty intense injuries for fall like that. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but for her to just stumble and fall rather than potentially being forcefully.
Do you know what the month was? Was it cold outside?
It was February.
So it could have been.
But there's not been any. I looked for ice, and it's also southern South Carolina. So not that there can't be ice, but it's very likely that there wasn't.
Yeah, more likely than not, there wasn't.
Yeah.
But then the other part of me tells me that that's like a very weird way to try to kill somebody, because like that doesn't guarantee them to be dead. And if you crack somebody in the back of the head with a bat one time and they don't die, chances are when they come back to life,
right,
they'll be like, yeah, old Alex cracked me in the head with a bat while on the stairs.
No, you're right. I mean, who's to say? So I'll let you guys make your observations from there. So she survived that fall initially. She went into the hospital and she was there for about 3 weeks, and her condition declined rapidly. She wound up having to get bilateral. She had chest tubes on both sides. She had.
So she was out. Like she was. So I mean, if you're going to the hospital and you're already getting chest tubes, she probably never woke up from that. She probably got knocked the fuck out and never came back.
I'm not sure at what point they had to intubate her, like what point they put the breathing tube in, guys, and at what point she's not going to speak from that. So I don't know if that happened initially or not. They just said that she was slightly incoherent. I feel like it sounds like she declined pretty quickly. So I think that they went on life-saving measures pretty quickly, and then we get some chest tubes going, and it just kind of went one thing to the next to the next. She wound up passing away 3 weeks later in the hospital, or approximately 3 weeks later on February 26th of 2018. Mike. So, I mean, I don't know, make your own determination on this one. We know that she had no autopsy, which that in and of itself is not crazy. Oftentimes, a hospital death does not um, necessitate an autopsy. Uh, the person who signs off, there was no coroner to see her body. Again, that's not necessarily fishy under the circumstances that she died in the hospital. Now, had the attending physician when she passed away known their circumstances of her death or felt it to be in any kind of way untoward or off, and they could have requested a coroner and then an autopsy. That is of their privilege to do, but who knows who was rounding that day and she
Because
just
I mean, at this
dies.
point,
There's no
people
reason
aren't
to know that.
really.
No, there's
People
no reason to
haven't
think
really
that.
put together the whole thing that like everybody that comes around this family,
Right.
mysteriously gets hit by a car in the middle of the night, or falls down 8 flights of stairs, or is in a boating accident and goes missing, and nobody gets in trouble for any of it. And then,
Right.
of course, we are going to hear what's going to unfold a little bit later.
So let me tell you this. We know that Paul and Maggie died in June of 2021. They were killed. That's going to be our big case today that we're talking about.
Okay.
3 months after they were found dead, SLED announced they were opening a criminal investigation into Gloria Satterfield's death, and they got the permission of the family. They are going to be exhuming her body.
Whoa. When did that happen?
Just recently.
No way.
Well, actually, it was 3 months after. So it was like September of 2021. They announced that they've not yet exhumed it.
Wow.
But they now this is reminiscent of Stephen Smith, right? The quasi hit and run guy.
Right. Mario Rizzler asks in the chats here, I'm curious as to why they didn't hold the scene where the incident happened. Why rush and clear the scene with such serious and potential life-threatening injuries? I on a Thanksgiving day, an older man with his 2 nurse daughters, they were 21 and 24. They were both nurses. He was hanging out the window, hanging up Christmas lights, lost his balance, fell, and his head basically was like a watermelon on the back porch. And you're so, at that point, you're so invested, in empathy, I guess, with the family on Thanksgiving. You're pouring so much emotional energy into the family. At that point, you're like, man, you're not thinking like, how can I traumatize these people even more by holding this scene? And I get it, hindsight, right? In this case, they had no idea that the Murdochs were this big of pieces of shit yet. Nobody knew that yet. And a woman falling on the stairs, is that completely out of the ordinary? No, but there's a lot of shock. There's a lot of awe. There's a lot of,
this is before even the boat crash.
This is like, this is before the boat crash. So this is a lot of PTSD type things are going to happen. So what you're kind of, your mindset there is, and I know it sounds cheesy, but it's empathy, right? Like you show up on a scene like that and you're like, okay, well, how can I not make this more traumatic than it is? And the thing is, it's the cops that show up and make things more traumatic every time, that do this every single time. That why cops have such a bad rap, because they're like, what is this asshole? What is he on, some kind of a power trip? Why is he questioning people? Why is he holding us back? The same people, like in the Alec Baldwin case, right? The same cop, if he would have treated Alec Baldwin like he should have, and then Alec Baldwin would be completely, innocent of everything, then that cop would be forever shunned, forever, the Gabby Petito case. Those guys did what 99% of the time civilians want them to do, but then that one time it backfires, and now they're the worst cops in the world. So it's really a lose-lose. And I don't know the cop that showed up on this scene, but and that's the thing. That's why a lot of cops are the way that they are, where they're very stern, direct. And they're like, I don't give a shit if you like me. I don't give a shit if you don't like the way I'm treating you. I don't give a shit if you like my tone, because they've been burned doing the same thing that may have happened here, where they're just like, oh, this poor lady. Oh my gosh. How are you guys doing? Let's get everybody sat over there. You know what I mean? They're not thinking crime scene. They're thinking.
Right. And, and I think, again, if you just picture the scene, when they show up and she's lying on the ground, bleeding out of her head, not super coherent, and you've got Paul and Maggie and Alex, who again were not nefarious at this point. They were very well known and in fact revered. They held a little power. People might have been a little uncertain of them, but for the most part they were revered. I mean, I don't think it screams crime scene initially when they're like, "Oh my goodness, this is our beloved housekeeper and she fell." I mean, you're probably going with that, you know.
And they didn't hear the 911 call. Like we're like, again, this is the problem with things that we do and the things that true crime people do is that it's basically us Monday morning quarterbacking.
Armchair quarterbacking. Yeah.
Because
yeah.
these cops don't know that these guys sounded nefarious on a 911 call. These cops don't know that, again, that the Murdochs aren't huge
Anything
pieces
is
of
strange.
shit.
Yeah, for sure. But that's Gloria in a nutshell.
So now we have boat crash. We got a girl dead in a boat crash. We got a dude dead in a hit and run that probably wasn't a hit and run or nobody can explain. And now we have an unexplained falling death of the caretaker.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was going to say, I think as awful as this sounds, I think that the boat crash was the most innocent of all of them. I mean, Paul did so many things wrong, but I think that was the one that I don't think was he didn't intentionally murder Mallory. I mean, he made horrible choices and all the adults around them made horrible choices. And that should have never happened.
And obviously you don't want anybody like Mallory to pass away. I don't think she was deserving of it at all, but it's crazy that it took something like that. And maybe that's where Mallory's angel exists, right? Because if Mallory wouldn't have died on that boat, if that incident wouldn't have happened, it would not have unfolded or possibly unfolded what happened to Gloria, what happened to the hit and run, what was his name? Steven. And eventually what's going to kind of play into this next story that you're going to tell, all revolving the Murdoch family.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to quickly, and I really don't want to spend a ton of time on this. I want to tell you one last thing about Gloria. I am going to refer to my notes here because there's just a lot of little things, but very long story short, she dies. Alex says, hey, to her sons, basically, instead of implicating my family in her wrongful death because my dogs tripped her, right? He said, let me help you out. Okay. And now if you guys remember, he's done this with most of these cases. Help me help you. I'm a lawyer. I can hook you up with some stuff. And so they say, okay. And he said, I will go on and set it up to have my insurance company sue. Like I will sue through my insurance company myself. And he says, don't tell anyone about that. They don't really need to know. It won't work out this well for all of us, or for you guys if you do. If I do it this way, the payout will be a lot quicker. I looked into that in terms of insurance claims with death, and he's right. They do pay out because they know this is going to be high cost, so they pay out and they pay out fast. So he tells her sons, it said that he agreed to a judgment. What that means when they say that you agree to a judgment in terms of a wrongful death, that doesn't mean that you're accepting any kind of guilt or innocence there. It means that you've agreed to a payout. So he sets up a company. Alex has the ball here. It's all in his court. So he sets up for his company, for the insurance to pay him. It was $500,000, which I've learned that's not the kind of money you would generally seek in a wrongful death, especially with someone with this kind of money. So Alex sets it up to where that comes into his account. He's supposed to then pay that out to her sons. Her family is supposed to get this. They don't. He then arranges legal representation for the Satterfield family to the tune of Corey Fleming. And if you've heard any of this, Corey Fleming was Alex's best friend and roommate in college. They went to school together. They became lawyers together. And he puts Corey at the scene of everything. So the boat crash, if you guys remember, they were trying to set up old Connor as the driver for the boat crash. When we know it was Paul, he gets Corey Fleming to represent Connor and his family. So Corey is very present in all of these things as well.
And so Corey Fleming is Alex's best friend too, if I'm not mistaken.
Corey Fleming has now lost his license and is indicted on multiple charges. So
good. Yep. Well,
but he's right there. He's kind of this ever-present little character in anything that goes wrong with Alex's family. So they arranged for the insurance company to pay out first. They then removed Tony Satterfield, one of Gloria's sons, as the personal representative for his mother's estate. They did that. They went through some legal loopholes to remove him. Once they were able to remove him, they replaced him with Chad Westendorf, who was the VP of Palmetto State Bank. The reason this matters is because let me tell you this real fast. They took millions. They furnished it through, Alex set up something called Forge. It was actually a fake company, funny name for it. And they then got the ultimate payout of, I think, $4.3 million. It all goes to Forge. Now her family is no longer as personal representative of her estate. They have no ties to this money since they didn't sue him. He did it himself. There are no repercussions here, and they have no give back on this money. It's not coming to them. Asked me if they saw a dime. They didn't see one, and her family had to pay for her own funeral and has not seen one dime of this money.
And the way I heard this story from the family in an interview was that originally Alex had told them, let me do what you said. Let me do this. Let me sue myself through my insurance company. It'll be faster and I'll get you this money. And then after that, all he did was give him a verbal, yeah, I mean, I guess, because their mother is dead. They're like dying,
he thinks
right?
that Alex is going to do the right thing by him. He's
sure, but he doesn't even remember saying that though. Like in his interview, he's like, yeah, I mean, I just said like in passing, like, my mom's died. My mom just died. I'm trying to get all this stuff. And he just comes at me with this. I was just like, yeah, I guess. And then never spoke of it again. So, I mean, like what a cancerous fucking
steamroller.
Yes. That he would take this loss of life, and we'll see that again in Mallory's loss of life, and they will take this and completely without him. This is like sociopathic. Like, I know they're not serial killers, but zero empathy, zero care. It's all about saving me, saving mine. It's that very like almost last name family mindset, right? Where
Nepotism.
It's like nepotism, like very strange. It's people like the Murdaughs that you want to lay down on a ghost bed and they never ever wake up. They never wake up,
baby.
And there's no better time than right now to get your hands on a ghost bed because there's a limited time only flash sale. And I'm on the ghost bed website right now and it's a flash sale. This is better than our promo code. Well, if you use our promo code right now, Wolfpack, you get 35% off, and then you get 35% off on everything, like all the little nooks and crannies. Or you can, and this is like, I've always said I'm a terrible salesman. You cannot use our promo code. And if you just want the luxury adjustable base, that's 40% off. But then you're going to only get 25% off of bedding, pillows, and accessories. So if you end up buying an adjustable base and mattress, and you're going to get the bedding, pillows, and accessories, our deal still is better. But right now they're offering 40% off of luxury adjustable bases, 25% off of bedding, 30% off of all award-winning mattresses. If you use our promo code, you get 35% off of that award-winning mattress. 40 to 50% off adjustable base bundles, 50% off memory foam toppers. Listen, guys, it's sleep so good it's scary. They're made in the good old USA. Oh God!
You stop every time. Every time we have it, and you finish short. You finish when I'm not ready for you.
This is why women shouldn't be allowed to podcast. They should. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. But right now, man, this is a great flash sale. Look at support GhostBed. They support us. They're our first network sponsor. They've been our sponsor in our past life when we were on another major network. So head over to ghostbed.com and use that promo code Wolfpack. Now, if you don't want to use our promo code because you're just trying to get on that adjustable base for 40% off, great, right?
I mean, you don't love
I will
us
always
very
be
much.
transparent. But when you go to that checkout survey, tell them where you heard them. Tell them where you heard them from. Huh? No.
Heard about them.
Heard about them from, and that's failure to stop. And the promo code Wolfpack. So anyway, that's our ad read for tonight. Go and support them. Also, if you get a chance, if you want to clean them teeth, make your teeth all pretty, head over to RitPack and get you 15% off using the promo code Wolfpack for RitPack.com. And we actually have him coming on the show on Thursday for Last Call, talking all about camping and teeth care while being in the field and what life is being a Marine and why he gives a shit. Basically, he's a Marine. He ate too many crowns, couldn't figure out how to clean his teeth, and RitPack was born. But you'll hear more about that on Thursday. Let's get back to the Murdoch.
Yeah, I think it was actually gums up, giddy up, right? RitPack.
Yep.
That's what it was
Gums up,
giddy up. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna fast forward. We are gonna have to make this one quick because we have to get to the actual big case. I'm just gonna go through not even all my stuff here. Let's fast forward. So we have Gloria's dead. At some point, Paul and Maggie are going to be dead. That's the big case we're talking about. But then after that, 3 months after Paul and Maggie were found murdered in September of 2021, we have Alex Murdaugh. If you want to start, I'm not ready for it yet. But the 911 call for the quote, the shooting. So we have Alex, guys, driving down the road. 3 months after Paul and Maggie. Are you doing a rip pack right now? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm drinking wine, but I do have your thing lined up.
Okay.
This is a really, really good bottle of wine. I don't know what it is or what my wife, it's our last day of vacation, but it is a fantastic. Just going on taste alone, I will say it's probably a cab, maybe a Zen, because it's got the medium tannins, very high alcohol content,
You guys
full
know
bodied,
he
very
did this for a
jammy.
while before.
Blackberry and raspberry is very jammy. I am a certified specialist in wine and a sommelier, trained in this, but you asked. Somebody else in the chat asked.
Yeah.
But it is a fantastic bottle of wine. I don't know what it is, but I give it 90 points. Go, continue.
All right. So Alex is driving on the road, stops to change a tire, he says, and he calls 911 to say this, if you're ready.
911. Okay, still? Hey. Okay, let me speak to him, see if he can tell me exactly where you are. That church? Okay. Redwood. Yes, hurry, please. Okay, and what's your name? I'm still here. I'm still on the line with you. What's your name? Alex Murdoch. Alex Murdoch? Yes, ma'am. And you see you were driving, you got a flat tire, somebody stopped to help you and they shot you? Well, they pulled over, yes, ma'am, like they were going to help me. Okay, stay on the line with me. We're going to get some. I'm bleeding pretty bad. Okay. St. John's Missionary Church. St. John's Missionary Church? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And can you give me a description of the person that shot you or shot at you? Yes, ma'am. I mean, it was a white fella. I'd say a white male, a fair amount younger than me. Really, really short hair. You have an ambulance coming there? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Stay on the line. I got them on the way. You think one of y'all can drive me to the hospital? Yes, sir. You want to get the truck now because I got a baby and he's like that.
I've got no problem with that.
no.
Like, if you're fucking hurt, get in a
it's
car
fine.
and go to the hospital.
It's fine.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's fine. But so, okay. I think that my favorite part is when he says, oh, he was a white guy, a fair amount younger than me. Show the other picture of Curtis if you can, that I love so much. No, the other one.
He looks like
I
a
think
Caucasian.
My dad
Laszlo
drank
Lopez.
beer with him. I think my dad drank beer with him in 87.
Your dad smoked pot, drank a couple of brewskis.
Well, he
with that
drank
guy,
some
couple
like Miller High Life ponies. You know what I'm
Miller
saying?
Lite, I
Like,
like ponies.
yeah, that he and Curtis probably did. I feel like he might have been hanging around at some point. But look at him. And
Yeah.
Alex is saying, oh, it's a white boy, short hair, a good bit younger than me. Well, the reason this is funny is because we then find out he was not changing a tire and shot. He it comes out very quickly within just a couple of days of this that he had actually hired Curtis to shoot him in a suicide for hire plot so that Buster, the remaining son, keep in mind this is after Paul and Maggie have died that we've not talked about yet, so that Buster, the remaining son, could get the $10 million of life insurance payout. So he hired Curtis, who is one of his former clients, I think from a legal scene and from an oxycodone scene. So he Alex has had a 20-year addiction to opioids. But Curtis maintains his innocence in this. He says, I didn't shoot him. And his reason is because he's still alive. He said, if I shot him, he'd be dead. I didn't shoot him. He said that when he gets there, it was a setup. And I'm getting to the point where I'm believing everybody but Alex. So I don't know if this is true or not. But okay, LOR. Okay, look, last row. We're gonna finish it today, and after all your sass, don't you even worry about it. So the Curtis says that when he gets there, Alex calls him to where he's parked on the side of the road. He comes there. Alex is holding a gun. He says, "What you doing?" Alex said, "Are you gonna shoot me?" And he said, I wouldn't do that. And he said, Alex makes a move and does a weird thing. And he's trying to grab the gun from Alex and the gun went off. So Alex's injuries were very superficial. He had a very slight skull fracture, but mainly it was just in the scalp. There was an entry and exit route wound in the back of the scalp, the like parietal. So like,
So you're
the
saying
top
that
back of his
Alex
head.
wanted to kill himself,
Yes.
but he wanted to make it look like a murder.
So that his son could get the insurance payout.
And now, was this before or
you wouldn't
after
get it
he
from
murdered
suicide.
his wife and his son?
This was 3 months after.
Okay, so good. I mean, I'm glad at least he wanted to kill himself, but it sucks that he couldn't even do it. Well, even then, he's trying to ruin another dude's life. I mean, what kind of piece of shit is this guy that he calls? I mean, does he think that this guy is such a loser that he can go to jail for
I
murder?
think this guy isn't like in the cream of the crop of society, but also the dude's like, look, I did not come there to shoot him. Like he said, if I was taking money to shoot this dude and kill him, he'd be dead. I don't know if he's right or not, or I don't know who's doing what, but I have more of an inkling to believe Curtis than Alex because I have a tough time believing anything Alex says at this point.
It's crazy because in the Dylan Rounds case, Curtis is the one of the more nefarious characters as well. Don't name your kids Curtis. No, there was a Curtis.
Oh, there's Kurt. There was a Kurt. Yes, you're right, Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
So, real quick, funny thing though, it's kind of like the Gloria when Alex said that she told him that his dogs tripped her up. So he also said immediately that he lost vision. The doctors don't quite understand that. He mainly had a scalp wound. Like I said, a very small fracture, but his skull, so where he was shot, I'm showing you guys, most of you are not gonna wind up seeing this, but was the top back of the head. It's called the parietal portion of the skull. That's not where your vision, like where your brain controls your vision, is called the occipital point. So that's actually the very bottom base back of your skull, not where he was shot. There's like no indication that he should have had any kind of weird vision at all. But he said that his vision immediately went down on him. He could see nothing, and he miraculously got it back in the hospital.
I mean, this is more of a grazing wound.
It was very superficial. They did lifeline him, to make note. They lifelighted him, and a couple of the other things that I've read about, they actually inquired about why would you consider, and they said, well, I mean, it was a gunshot wound to the head and he was bleeding, right? So you don't know if there were a bullet in there. We don't know if it's bouncing around. We don't know what we're doing. So we have to take precedence here and kind of triage to the best of our ability. And that would mean lifeline. So they took him to Savannah. He went to the hospital there where
I'm in Savannah right now.
Fine. I know
I'm
you
at
are.
right now, Savannah.
So anyway, he was fine. But then Curtis did get in trouble. They both got in trouble for this. Curtis maintains his innocence. Murdoch eventually was charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. Curtis was charged with assisted suicide, aggravated attempted suicide, whatever, aggravated assault, and insurance fraud. One day after this happened, Alex, I would say, to avoid further issues legally, committed himself to a rehab facility for his opioid use.
Good.
And he resigned from PMPED, which was the law firm that he and his dad and his grandfather had worked for forever.
Well, that's noble of him to resign in honor. So where do we get to?
So now we're going to talk about
real murder.
Yep. And we don't even have to talk about it forever. It's just it's the big one, right? So it's what really matters. So
Look, I'm here for the murder and the chaos.
We're here for it.
I know that sounds unempathetic, and I just preached about empathy, but like I'm all here for the murder and the mayhem.
I'm here for some air conditioning. What's up in here? All right. So on June 7th of 2021, not going to need it right now, but if you want to start queuing up this 911 call. So just to keep you guys in mind, Stephen Smith was 2015. Gloria Housekeeper was 18. The boat crash was 2019. And now here we are in June of 2021. So we get a call. We'll play it in a moment, but we get a call to 911 from Alex, who is at his hunting property. You guys, they have a 1,700 acre hunting property. At this point, they have multiple residences. Eric put a few pictures up here. It's really pretty. Again, there's some brick pylons in the front, bunch of pine trees, just big hunting property. There's pictures of them. Like I told you guys, I tried to friend request Buster on Facebook and he's not accepted yet. I'm holding out hope. But there's a lot of pictures.
You tried to befriend the youngest son that's still alive?
He's the oldest, and the one that's alive.
The oldest, and he's alive. Wow.
Yeah.
What a
I think he's probably got a lot going on right now.
Cold bitch. It's
like, I just wanted to
true
see if
crime.
I needed
to
know
if P.I. Terry was right about you.
I needed to know. You have not said anything more hateful to me than that in about 15 years.
I'm so sorry.
That's the worst.
That was the wine talking.
That's worse than in that liquor store in the mountains. Remember that? So listen.
There was a poor abortion joke on my part. All right, and I've been sorry ever since.
Okay, well, first of all, I didn't have that done. That's all I care for people to know. Nothing to do with me.
Well, in the middle of Boone, North Carolina,
all right,
Piggly Wiggly,
I wasn't telling the whole story.
She feels like you did. So, rest in pieces, baby Andrea that never existed.
Oh my God, guys. Okay. So Alex calls 911 at 10:07 p.m. If you want to go on and play it, we can just do that now.
Yep, got it. I got it right here.
This is Alex Murdoch at 4140 Moselle Road. I need the police to assist immediately. My wife and child are shot badly.
Okay, you said 4147 Moselle Road in Allison?
Sir?
You said 4147 Moselle Road in Allison?
Yes, sir. 4147 Moselle Road.
Stay on the line with me, okay? Yes, sir. Stay on the line with me, okay?
County Communications.
Collison, I have an Alex Murdoch on the line calling from 4147 Moselle Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and sir, give me the address again. It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad. Okay. Okay, and are they breathing? No, ma'am. Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son? My wife and my son. Are they in a vehicle? No, ma'am. They're on the ground out at my kennel. Okay, and did you see anyone? Okay, is he breathing at all? No. Is she? Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. What color is your house on the outside? What color is your house on the outside? It's white. You can't see it from the road. Okay, is it a house or a mobile home? It's a house. Okay, and what is your name? My name is Alex Murdoch. Okay, did you hear anything, or did you come home and find them? I've been gone. I just came back. Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house? No, ma'am. Please hurry. We're getting somebody out there to you. Okay, what is her name? Maggie and Paul. Maggie is her name? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And please hurry. We're getting somebody out there to you. Me asking you these questions, don't slow them down, okay? And you sure they're not breathing? Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot, but what about your son? Nobody. They're not. Neither one of them's moving. What is your telephone number? And does anything look out of place? Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am. Okay. Are they close, ma'am? Yeah, they've been en route with you ever since you've got on the phone with me. I have multiple people coming out there to you. Okay. I don't want you to touch them at all, okay? I don't know if you've already touched them, and I don't want you to touch them just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay? I already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
He seems like he got really, really collected when he talked about touching him. I don't know. I don't like to judge 911 calls because I can't even imagine. I don't know, because I haven't been in that situation where I've needed to call 911, but I've listened to enough 911 calls to know that nobody does it the way I think I would have done it. You know what I mean? Like where every time I listen to one, I'd be like, I would never say that. So I'm guessing that there's just like some psychological things that come with trauma that make you say certain things. I cannot imagine what it would be like to come home and find my wife and my child. I don't even know if I'd be able to call 911. I think I would just lay there and die with them. I don't know what I would do. It would be insane. I'll tell you that.
So he calls 911. That was at 10:07. At 10:25, the first responders get there. Richard Harvey is the coroner here.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
Excuse me.
Nope. Keep going.
He says that they both died, or his official diagnosis then is that they died between 9 and 9:30 p.m. The call was made at 10:07 p.m. I will say that a 30-minute window of death is pretty narrow. I feel like they usually don't. I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying there was anything erroneous here, but generally speaking, would you not agree that it's usually an hour or two like window that we get? Like a 30-minute window is very, very small. And it could have just been based on the time of the call. That and it was registered to PMPED. That was his law firm, guys.
Wait, say that one more time, because you're kind of cutting out a little bit with the internet.
Oh,
it might be just my internet, but I missed what you said
now?
there. I can, but just say that last part one more time.
Absolutely. So there was a 2021 Chevy Suburban that was in that moment when law enforcement EMS gets there and then law enforcement gets there. I'm just saying it now, so don't forget to tell you, but this Suburban was actually taken. It was towed and impounded immediately as evidence or whatever. They took it away, and it was registered to PMPED. That is the law firm that all of the Murdaughs had worked for. Right. Alex, daddy, and granddaddy. So let's talk about the scene a little bit. This was their hunting property. Again, it's I say a cabin. That's a fun loose term for cabin. Okay, it's a beautiful big home.
I like it. Well, I don't like, but in the 911 call where she's like, "Is it a mobile home or a real home?" He's like, "It's a house.
It's a house." Like he cannot. He's like, "Absolutely, no, it's a house." Just like in the other 911 call.
I'm not a peasant. I'm not a peasant.
It just like in the other one, right? When Paul was like, she was like, "What is your house like?" He's like, "It's a big house." Like
it's a massive, enormous house with lots of mahogany and leather-bound books, marble floors,
mahogany. It smells of mahogany. All right, so we have the home. There's some outbuildings. It's a true proper hunting lodge, right? Or hunting property, if you will. So there are dog kennels, and when I say this, don't think you're like some
this
trashy
is like an
backyard, whatever.
Like this is an Alaskan dog kennel.
They're like really pretty kennels. Like they have like the gates in the front. It's a big wooden outbuilding with it's nice. It really looks nice. I've read that the dog kennels were about 400 yards away from the main property, from the home. Their bodies were found out by the dog kennels. Okay. So here's what, guys. So they were shot with 2 different guns. So Maggie was shot multiple times with a rifle. She was shot in her back and the back of her head.
Damn.
Her back and the back of her head. Paul was shot in the head, chest, and through the arm with a shotgun. They referred to casings that were found and bullets that were found. I don't know about you. I think that we always refer to them as what? Slugs? Shells? If it's a shotgun?
Well, shotgun shells, casings would be, a rifle or a pistol, typically.
Right. So maybe they only found what they needed from the rifle. There were the 2 guns, right? So when they say that they found shells and casings, I'm not thinking shotgun. If I'm thinking shotgun, I'm thinking, or not me, excuse me. When they said that they found casings, I think the rifle, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, did they say shells and casings?
No, they didn't say shells. They just said casings.
I don't know, like, obviously you and
They're all in
shells
South Carolina.
Casings.
They know if it's a shotgun, they're going to call it a slug or a shell. I just can't imagine they'd say that.
Well, yeah, the slug is what comes out of the shell. But yeah, I don't know. But I like for legal purposes or for like reports, I don't know if you write shells or casings.
Well, I won't down that hill.
I've never. Yeah,
That's
it's a good
fine.
question though. I've never written a report that has a shotgun involved.
Yeah. So again, Paul was shot in the head, chest, and through his arm. So I think that the chest wound also went through his arm. Everything I've gathered was interior. So that was from the front. Maggie's was in her back, though. I think that's very important to consider, in her back and the back of her head. So we're going to come back to the guns because that's kind of a fun, very interesting topic here. Okay. So we know that the 911 call that we just had, that's only recently been released and it has been redacted electronically. Okay, guys. So we've not heard everything from that call. And we also didn't, Lynn. Hey, Lynn, I'm so glad you're here. We didn't hear the full one today just because it's very long. You can listen to it, if you want to at home. It's quite a few minutes long. But even when you do listen to it fully, it has been redacted. So that's important to know. We also know that Alex is kind of, if you do listen to it, Alex is moving around a lot. So because it's beside the dog kennels, you will often hear the dogs barking and then you don't hear dogs barking at all. And it sounds like he's moving about. Near the dogs and away from the dogs, meaning near the bodies and away from the bodies.
I think that's fine though. I mean, pacing after a traumatic incident is pretty.
Pacing is
common.
fine. I don't think that the dogs' barks that are so loud and ever present because their bodies are literally in front of the kennels. Pacing doesn't eliminate the dog barking. But I mean, you're going a bit away for that to happen, right?
Well, and maybe he's having a hard time hearing because of the dogs.
That's a good point. Maybe there was a part where the dispatcher says, "Put blank down when they get there." We can't hear that word. It's been redacted. Put blank down when they get there.
Do you want me to play the rest? Do you want me to play the rest of that 911 call?
It's long. I mean, it's not that like salacious in that sense. Like it's interesting to hear when you want to hear it at home, but it's not. Yeah, there's a lot of dead space and stuff. But there is a moment where the dispatcher says that it's been redacted, so we don't know what she says to put down.
I
can make an assumption.
Put the gun down.
I can make an assumption.
Jesus.
Right, before EMS gets there. So 19 minutes after the 911 call, Deputy Daniel Green arrives at 10:26. About a minute later, they considered the scene clear and they admitted fire rescue. A couple minutes after that, fire rescue requests the coroner. So now we have SLED. SLED has been contacted at 10:28 by the Colton County Sheriff's Office, and now SLED is taking over. There's a couple reasons. Number one, the complexity of the case. And number two, because the Colton County Sheriff's Office has recused itself because they have too strong of ties to the Murdaughs.
Which is crazy because when we first started this, I thought, no way. It's that no cops don't care about people like the Murdochs. Like it's not on our radar. You know what I mean? But like now that we're so into this case and things just keep popping up, I'm like, geez, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe, I don't think at a street level still. But man, I'm actually in Savannah right now, and I'm way in the outskirts, in the middle of nowhere, Savannah. And this is a different world. This is a different world out here. So my wife and I, we've gone through some game preserves and stuff, and all I can say is like, oh my gosh, that'd be a great place to hide a body. Oh my God, I wonder how many bodies are in that marsh.
And think about if everybody that was in law enforcement is someone you've worked with individually.
Well, they say the average income around here where we're at is like $24,000 a year. I mean, it's just, it's scary. Outside of the neighborhood, it's a scary. It's not scary. It's just big giant lots with like rundown trailers that are sinking into the ground. Like it's very scary.
House.
But I don't know if that's what it's like in this county in South Carolina. But I'm starting to believe as the story progresses that nothing's off the table.
Yep. I mean, it's bizarre. So keep this in mind. So Paul driving the boat, right, with Mallory. Paul had a hearing 3 days later from his indictment on the Mallory Beach. If you guys remember, Paul never saw any jail time, was never taken. Like he not even a slap on the wrist for this. So just Paul is now dead, but 3 days later,
Jesus.
he had a trial, Mallory Beach's death, which then could also implicate the entire family because they would be looking into finances and a lot of other things. That's a good thing to think about. All right.
Say that one more time. Because that's pretty important.
Mm-hmm. Just that, hang on, let me look at my little notes here. Yeah, just that 3 days after these deaths, after this murder, Paul, the son that was murdered, had a court date for the indictment on Mallory Beach's death, the girl that died on the boat. This is important because the family could further be implicated on some other things when they start digging into Alex, right?
So you're thinking the motive here.
Nope,
or no, you're not thinking that?
Well, I don't necessarily think it comes down to Mallory Beach. Like, I'm not funneling it through I'm not siphoning it that narrowly at this point. But I do think that that's an interesting thing to keep in mind.
But you're kind of hinting that possibly if
I'm hinting that it's important.
Paul was indicted, Paul's about to go to trial, and if he does go to trial, all the shit from the Murdochs is going to come out, and he's like, this can't go to trial. I have to kill my fucking son. Now, what if that's the case? Mom is on board with it. She's like, yeah, he fucked up, right? Like, we're not going to allow the whole family to suffer because Paul fucked up. And she's sad and she's crying, but she knows it has to be done for the betterment of the family. So he goes to kill him. She tries to stop it. She freaks out and he's like, great. Now I'm going to have to shoot you too. Because
we're going to talk about theories.
Okay.
Yep. Because there's a few of them.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that 3 days after the murder, he was scheduled to go to court and start that trial.
Yep. So let's talk about why Maggie was there. At this point, Maggie and Alex were living in different residences. Maggie was living in their Edisto Island house. She's been in contact with divorce attorneys for weeks. Right before she shows up. So at this point, Randolph, you guys remember Randolph? That's Granddaddy. That's Alex's father. He was the one that Paul called the minute the boat crash happened when he was just in nothing but his little boxers and he's huddled over talking to Randolph, right? Granddaddy, lawyer.
Right.
Randolph is in the hospital. He's very, very ill. He also died just a few days after this happened. Actually, he died 3 days later. He died the same day, interestingly enough, that Paul was supposed to go to court for the indictment on Mallory Beach's death. But Alex uses this to get in touch with Maggie. So Maggie and he are living separately. She's in contact with the divorce attorneys, right? She texted her friend saying, right before she gets there, saying, Alex has texted me. He wants me to meet him at the hunting property. He wants me to go with him to see basically his dying dad. I don't know. Some of that's kind of gone. I don't know if it's Randolph. I don't know what she says. But so Alex had asked her there on the premise of going with him to visit dying father. She does, but not without hesitation. So that same day or that evening, she texted her girlfriend and said, I feel like he's up to something. He's acting fishy. That was her text.
So I guess that does change the theory a little bit because now Maggie's wanting to get away from Alex. And the whole family's falling apart, right? Randolph.
She's ready to divorce him.
This is very Game of Thrones. Do you know what is it? Cersei's father, the one that the little guy, what's his name?
Yeah. It's been a while. I forget all of it.
He shoots him with the
it's the descriptions.
Crossbow. Yeah. This Randolph seems like that guy. And you know what I mean? Like it's very Game of Thrones-ish.
Absolutely. I just think that like I'm kind of proud of Maggie that she was trying to get out of that. It's like exactly. It's like it says Maggie knew that he was up to some stuff and didn't do anything about it. And you're right. Like I agree for a long time she didn't, but then I still don't think that I can't call her a saint. You can't be around this for that long and not be in it. So I do think that she was probably in it to a degree, but I'm not sure where her breaking point was, but at least she was trying to get out, right? Like, I don't know. She was trying to get out of there. But keep in mind, guys, she did text her girlfriend that she was a bit apprehensive about meeting him. And he said that he wanted to meet her so that she could go with him to see the his dying father, right? So, if what he then says, okay, quit, you guys, quit putting these up there. I'm getting distracted. If what he then later tells EMS and law enforcement is that he came in from being like he didn't expect anybody to be at the property, which we know is not true because we have her text saying that he asked her to meet him there. But then he's telling law enforcement, I didn't expect anybody here, and I show up and they are both here and shot, right? So this is interesting. Paul's cell phone was found near his body. Okay. It contains audio and video footage of Alex speaking to Maggie just before they were killed.
What?
Again, he told law enforcement that he wasn't there and did not expect anyone there, that he shows up and they're just there and dead. But we now have Paul's phone that has video. So at some point, somehow, Paul's phone is recording, or Paul is recording video footage and audio of Alex and Maggie speaking before those two were killed.
No
we
way.
also know that
how bizarre is that? Because how often do you just like record me and Ashley?
Don't.
Right?
Well,
like,
right.
How often do you go off with your friends and just like hit the old record button in your pocket? Very strange. I would love to know. I would love to know what that audio was.
I need you to know that we have not been disclosed that evidence yet, and for good reason, but also Maggie's phone was found as well, but it was found 2 miles down the road, dumped.
Whoa. So they took Maggie's. Oh, wait, hang on.
I think he didn't have time to get Paul's. I think that he wasn't fast enough or didn't think or whatever.
So he shot them both, took her phone. Why would he take her phone? Like if I'm going to kill you, I don't really need to take your phone. I mean, I guess unless I put something on
Maybe
there.
He thought he got Paul's.
Oh, goodness gracious.
All right. So real fast. One thing we know, Buster, the oldest brother we haven't talked about for a while. The only time he's been involved in anything potentially nefarious would have been maybe Stephen Smith's hit and run weirdness, right? Because we've heard that there were rumors that Buster and Stephen potentially had a sexual relationship.
Right.
So that's the only time Buster's name really comes out. Most people do continue to say that Buster was a good boy. Out of all these people, they kind of really liked Buster. We know that he was confirmed in the Charlotte Rock Creek area or Rock Hill area at the time of the murder. So he's got a solid alibi. We're not worried about him when it comes to Paul and Maggie's death. So we do know that on June 16th, the SLED agents were collecting evidence about 2 miles from the property in a swampy area, and that's all we know. So keep in mind this happened in June of 2021, and here we are, and he has just recently been indicted, Alex, that is, of the murders of Maggie and Paul. But you know what? Like, the more I think about it, yeah, it took a long time. Absolutely. You're going to get someone. Walmart, we talked about this. Walmart wouldn't go against them. Walmart would not come. If you look at that jurisdiction hellhole website, Walmart would not come to their county to put a giant big box store for fear of legal repercussions based on this town and the jurisdiction, based on how they handled things. So, you know what? Maybe it's been a year, but probably for good reason. Would you say, as a police officer, a former police officer, like I feel like they had to make sure they could solidify. It's one thing to arrest someone, it's a different thing to have enough to actually try to convict.
I think what a lot of people forget too is, one, this was during COVID. So lots of days off, lots of things are going to happen, right? Court cases, meeting with DAs, meeting with attorneys. And of course, if he has an attorney, that attorney is going to probably say, I have COVID. Then my ADA has, my assistant has a COVID. My receptionist has COVID. Like, they're going to play the COVID thing out for the whole year. So you're not going to get to talk to anybody for the year if they're good lawyers. Then the real life is going to hit, where you are going to have judges and, people on grand juries they're going to have COVID. You're going to have to fight through that. And that was a really tough time. Also coupled with the fact that these are the Murdochs and they have a lot of money to keep this thing postponed for a long time.
And just power. Like, you've got to have a solid case, right? I mean, you've got to be pretty ready.
It's going to be hard to get a solid case because of all that. And then, you don't know if the detectives that have been assigned the case are going to get moved around, right? Like people get promoted, demoted, people retire. So a lot of things can happen in the span of a year. There's a reason why these things take so long, and it's not necessarily nefarious.
Oh, I don't think it's nefarious. I think it's smart. I think that they had to have all of their ducks in a row, right? They've got to be before you. I mean, you can't try twice, right? So
right. And that's the other thing too that I've always said about true crime podcasters is, there's so much information that are in the hands of the DAs and judges and everything else, juries even, or people that are on grand juries. There's so much more information out there that we don't know, and so oftentimes it does suck as a cop sitting and listening to the news, kind of speculating on what's going on in a investigation. But you're like, that's really funny because they're not even close. And if they only had this one piece of information, they could bring it back, but they went the wrong direction. So
David gave us $69.69 for Eric to continue being wine drunk.
For 69, that's a man after my own heart. Those are both good numbers. Those are lucky numbers. If you would have played those numbers,
thank you, David,
in the newest lottery, you still wouldn't have won, but you would have felt good. You would have felt better about yourself losing having used those numbers. We
appreciate it for sure. So there's different theories, and we can wrap it up. But one is that, one theory, first of all, for Gloria was that she's so close to the Sarah. Hey, Eric, chug. It's for Eric, right? Not for me. Thank you, Sarah. He's got to swish that mess. Only a proper.
Hey, why don't you bring that back over here, honey? Get another glass of that, please. Thanks. All right, sorry about that.
No, you're good. There's a theory that Gloria was offed because she is just too close to the family, right? At some point, she would have heard something. She would have known something. Yeah, so that would be the theory of Gloria.
So, I mean, obviously, that's what I said, right? That either, yes, she knew too much. She had to be offed. God bless, that is sad.
But okay, so that's Gloria. But let's move on. That hers, there could be a whole story with just Gloria and her poor sons and family and the way this all ensued after for them financially. But the story tonight, really, we're trying to focus on Maggie and Paul. So there are some other theories that that there is the one like you spoke on earlier, that Paul, the boat accident earlier, causing him to have to go to court for that, would put too many fingers and too much of a spotlight on Murdoch and his family. Because at this point, we know that millions and millions of dollars over the years have been embezzled from his clients and different things. Like there's been a lot of, he currently has 80, let me look back at my notes, guys. 81, I think, indictments on. Most of them are just like fraudulent money charges.
How many indictments have you ever had?
Me?
You? Yeah.
None.
Interesting. Me either. This guy's got 81.
Yeah.
Like you're a problem to society when you have 81 indictments.
That's a lot. I feel like it's a lot. I don't know where that page went. Doesn't matter. It's a lot. He is currently on a $7 million bond with no 10%. And if you're not familiar, that means usually when you get on, you get a number for the bond, and they say, if you can pay 10% of that, then you can get out and kind of hang out outside of jail while you wait for your trial. And the judge said,
he can't because he's a suicide.
Well, the judge said, no 10%. And there's actually, his lawyer says, you can hear them saying, I'm sorry, no 10%. And the judge was like, you heard me, basically like a little sass, like, let's not repeat that. No 10%. Absolutely not. Yeah. So sorry, I just moved my whole desk. So that's what's happening with him right now. So one of the theories is that Paul's indictment was going to put too much of a spotlight on the Murdoch family. Another was that he actually went there with the intention to potentially harm Maggie. That her wanting to divorce him and different things was going to be too much, and that maybe Paul, we do know that there was like the cell phone footage from Paul's phone, and that maybe Paul was seen recording them talking, and Paul became a victim that wasn't initially going to be a victim. There were some talks about zip ties in some of the things I read, and then no more. That went away. It's really crazy, guys. Like, again, we're finishing it up, but we could just keep on. It doesn't go away. I mean, and you can look it up at everywhere you want to. Fitz News does a lot of stuff. Island Packet does a lot of stuff on it. But it's been super interesting. And keep in mind, again, Maggie was shot in the back of the head. So
with a rifle, but why use 2 guns?
Because, well, think about it. So,
or how about this?
Did
How
I
about
say
this? Oh, you know what? Here, I already figured it out.
Well, I don't think I told you something.
Okay, well, let me say this, and then we'll see if something changes my mind, because I think that's how true crime works. It's really funny to see when you're like way wrong.
Yeah.
He shoots homeboy with the shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
Then he calls Maggie. She's not there yet. Goes back inside, grabs a rifle. She comes to the scene. He blasts her.
So he was known to keep a rifle in his truck, which isn't unheard of, whatever.
Right.
And they were known to keep a shotgun by the kennels. Also not unheard of out there, right? You've got hogs, you've got all sorts of things that are wild. So what if he intended to shoot one, doesn't have what he needs to reload, he doesn't have the
it's a double barrel shotgun. He shot both casings.
I definitely think it was a double. I already think it's a double barrel shotgun for sure on Paul.
He waxes him with both shells, and then homegirl.
No, I think he grab mom first, and then he sees that Paul's recording, and he grabs the gun that's already sitting there, which in my head is going to be a double barrel shotgun. I don't know, but I don't know. I was really just made to see that hers was from the back.
What kind of? You said it was hard because you didn't like that she got shot in the back.
It was just, I was dismayed to see that she was shot in the back. I think I didn't know that until just recently.
I'd like to know where her body was. Was she covering the sun? Was she crying over the sun? It was execution style. Was she running away?
So
was she up by the house?
Things have pointed to execution style because they've talked about zip ties. They've talked about hers being from the back. Some of the things I've read says that it looked like that kind of a scene, like an execution scene.
Like get on your knees.
But but he wasn't. But Paul was not shot in the back, and they did not necessarily so you've got to be careful, because as you're going down these rabbit holes, like people say all sorts of things. So I'm kind of careful not to say everything that I've read. I'm not sure what's complete truth. I do know the truth is that she was shot with the rifle, he was shot with the shotgun, and like where their injuries were, I know that much is the case. But I think that I am going for a double barrel shotgun on that one.
What kind of shotgun did you carry in the hills of Tennessee, where you're from?
I didn't carry one. We had a couple. That was like the first thing I learned to shoot. We shot cans on the fence.
Dude, I mean, that's crazy. I have 4 kids, right? And you have a couple of kids, and I don't know that I could bring myself to executing them for any reason. I mean, I guess
keep in mind we don't know that he did, or in that
true.
fashion.
That's true.
I mean, I think he killed him. I'm sorry, I think he did for sure.
My love for my children is unconditional. I can't think of a scenario that makes me kill my own kids and be okay with it, and not just kill myself right away. Like if my kid ended up being like a pedophile fuck or a
well, keep in mind 3 months later he did have a plan to be killed. He didn't do it very well.
I don't know, man. That is bizarros. The whole story is bizarre. One, that it goes to show you that money doesn't buy you happiness. Right?
Absolutely not.
I mean, what's with these guys? Like, when is it enough? When is keeping up with the Joneses not a thing?
Sounds like he really did spend a lot of it on his drugs. Like he really was spending a lot of money.
You think it wasn't for keeping up with the Joneses?
I don't think it was all of it. I mean, how many millions? Like they said that it was oxycodone, I think, not even OxyContin. So it's not like that's not, millions aren't going there.
We're talking like 6 pills a day, $30 a pill.
Yeah, it's not millions
on the street. Like we're not.
Oh, by the way, we've learned since that
it's $120 a day.
Probably the money that should have gone to Gloria Satterfield's sons. And her family that he like sued himself for and the whole thing. partially supposed to be the money that he says he was paying Curtis for to shoot him.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, it's just it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop.
When is the next? Do you know when the next trial is? Or do
I don't
you
know, but I want to
when-
get Curtis on the show, y'all. What do you think?
But is
about
Curtis
that?
is Curtis in jail?
He was charged and I think he was convicted. He's probably in jail right now. I think he'll get out pretty soon. He looks like he's got a silver tongue. Curtis is
come
coming
on
out
now.
jail quick.
Come on, we need to get Curtis on, girl.
I want Curtis on this show.
Come on, get Curtis on the show, Tina.
Okay.
Go back to your old Hooters waitress management days.
My
and get
shift's about to
Curtis on the
start. I
damn
don't-
show. You got anything else for us, man? That was intense. That was an intense saga. I don't think the saga's over.
It's not
because,
over. Yeah, it's not over.
you
I'm
know,
sure
we're gonna
we'll
have to
revisit it,
revisit
guys.
this.
But yeah, I will say that I am super sorry if you don't like my voice.
Jesus
I don't
is
have
Lord.
a voice. No,
Jesus
Jesus is God. Said
Jesus
it.
is God on YouTube said she was in the hospital and she just
It's
really
not how she started. That's not how she started.
but she finished it by saying I was in the hospital and her voice annoyed me. How it started was, Eric, your wife's voice is, what did you say, like unlistenable?
She said it's causing me not to listen.
Which Andrea is not my wife.
not.
If she was my wife, I would Murdoch myself. But it's just
Good
not
point.
something you say to somebody. It's not something that you say to somebody on the social webs whose literally sole intent in life is simply entertaining you and keeping law enforcement officers awake at night. If anything, you should just keep that opinion to yourself. Jesus has gotten,
I think it was
frankly,
keep it up, y'all. I'm enjoying this. This is fun.
Frankly, I
tweets.
believe that that's the voice that God created. So, shitting on her voice, it would be then shitting on God's creativity, and I don't know that he appreciates it. So.
Well, it's all good. It made me laugh a little bit. But look, I'm sorry, Jesus is God. That's her handle, guys. I'm not sure of her real name, but it's what I got. I don't know.
Well, I appreciate it. Listen, we got Misty C in the chat. She said she loves the Southern drawl. TJR says we love Andrea. F all the haters. Ashley says Andrea, that's my wife actually. Andrea's voice is gold. Ashley, don't be a pervert. If you're listening to the show, go to bed. It's past your bedtime. Sarah Kelch is always in the chats. Lumber Chef, Hydroman Blue, Sleuth B, Lynn, as always. Look, Lynn looks like a real true crime. Lynn and Sleuth B. They look like real. They sound like real true.
Lynn is new here and she's bringing it. So
she's always bringing thunder, man. I love her. Knife found at the car scene that was used in the tire. Oh, that was going back. But we love her so much. Lazaro Lopez, Mario Rizzler. We got Jack Hydeus. That's a new one on me. Old Greg. Of course, we got, Kreger Zaleski's in the house. Tyler Durden is a stupid name as always, bringing us all the stuff. JC Allen. Thank you guys all. David, everybody, for joining in. Ben Marsh. Thank you guys so much for joining in on Failure to Stop Night Shift. Thursday, I will be sitting down with Rip Pack. If you missed the show last Thursday with Colin O'Brady, he just came off of Joe Rogan, came onto our show. He's been on Joe Rogan a few times. Man, what a phenomenal interview with that guy. I had a great time doing it, and I'm going to have a great time with the owner of Rip Pack, the creator of Rip Pack on Thursday. And then Friday, of course, Mike Kopp and I are back with another big breakdown. Last Friday, we had True Breezy on for Uvalde. Hindsight is 2022. And so you can go back and listen to that. Again, from Andrea Up Late and Eric Tansey Official, this has been another Failure to Stop Night Shift.
Yeah, good night, y'all.
Good night, y'all. Cheers.